Learn the Pivot Compression Golf Swing. Join WDGLC.com today.
Hey there everybody, it's Wayne DeFrancesco. Welcome to my website. And we've got two interesting players right here. Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods played together at the Barclays. And they both hit good drives on this one hole. I can't remember. I think it was number 7. And had iron shots into the greens. Par 5. I think Woods hit his drive 330 and McIlroy hit a 336, so I think they were both hitting either a 6 or a 7 iron into this par 5. And the cameraman sort of, I think he filmed Woods and then he ran over and got McIlroy, and it was so similar positioning that it makes for an interesting comparison. Now, unfortunately, he had his hand on the zoom with McIlroy's swing, so we can't really draw the lines. We can certainly make some observations here, and that's kind of thought that would be fun to do. So let's take a look. Let's first look at McIlroy. When we look at these setups, now if you look at the shoes, it would appear that Tiger's on the side of the fairway there that's a little bit tilted, so you can see that his posture is going to look a little more back in his heels, but I think in general Tiger has looked slightly more back in his heels with low hands, more so than he used to be. McIlroy is pretty balanced on his feet. I'd say if anything his weight appears to be a little more toward the balls of his feet, and Woods might be middle to slightly back. Both of them have fairly low hands, just below the belt buckle. Tiger's is a little more below, but again, that might be due to the lie. Now, the takeaways are interesting. You'll see McIlroy has, in this shot particularly, goes to a takeaway that's well out and away from him, but while Tiger keeps the club head outside of his hands, so that's a common thing on both. See the club head there and the club head here. Always a good idea to keep the club head from getting inside of your hands on the backswing. You'll see that McIlroy's hips are much more restricted initially in the swing, and Tiger's have opened up a little bit sooner. So McIlroy taking the club sort of out away from his body, reaches a position at left arm parallel where of course the left arm is not across his chest as much. Now Tiger tends to keep his right arm pinched in, so the right arm, while the left arm looks different, the right arm looks pretty similar because Tiger has kept his elbows a little bit closer together. So at that left arm parallel position, you can see Tiger's shaft is a little bit pointed more toward the plane.
Looking to maximize your golfing potential? Learn how from one of the world's best golf instructors. Join today at WDGLC.com.
McIlroy's is a little bit on the, just a hair, a little bit steeper than the plane, but watch. Rory's swing gets really interesting when it starts to get toward the top because it starts to lay off. You'll see that the left wrist is more cupped than Tiger's. And Tiger was working on that a little bit and did strengthen his grip, but it seems that just from watching him swing, it looks like he is falling back into, probably on purpose, a little more of what he was doing with between 05 and 09 or 10 with Hank Haney. The wrist looks a little flatter. He was trying to cup it. The face doesn't look quite as open as it was, mostly because of the grip change. And then his hands are while they're not dropping straight down behind him, they're certainly heading just in front of his feet and not really out at the ball like they were, or like he was trying to do for a while. Now if you watch McIlroy's hands, they're going to go backwards. So we're at the top. And watch where his hands go. So now you don't see that much out on the tour, and I prefer to, if I see a student do that, I'll try to fix it, because the rest of the stuff that he does, nobody does. So it's pretty interesting that he can drop his arms back behind him and not pinch his elbow in, and yet come down on such a nice angle and release the right arm and straighten it to the left. Now a lot of this is just due to his pivot motion, and if you watch McIlroy's pivot, now I know I mentioned that Tiger's hips open up a little sooner. Now it's not that they open up a whole lot, they just open up a little sooner. And McIlroy actually has a counter hip move to start. So take a look right here at the line of his, you can see his stance is a bit open here. You can see the back of the left leg. Now watch when I move this just a hair, watch the left leg. So the left leg actually moves this way, and that means he's counter-rotating his hips before he starts his swing. So in other words, his hips are turning toward the target slightly as he's taking it back. And if you experiment and try to do that, what you'll find is you create immediate torque between the upper and lower, because essentially what you're doing is moving the lower backwards while the upper body is trying to coil back. So in taking the club out away from his body and restricting his hips so that they really don't even have a degree of openness until the shaft is parallel to the ground. Now trust me, this takes a really limber body to do this and make a decent full swing. It would certainly shorten anyone who was having trouble watching their swing length, but now we'll see a really neat combination of items here. You'll see that the whole hand, arms, and shaft will lay back, so the club essentially will lay off. So you see the shaft angle there, and then you see it lay back. The legs are moving initially forward. The knees are moving, driving toward the ball, and the arms are falling behind him. Now that's a recipe for disaster for most players. I've been teaching for a long time, and this is a type of movement that usually gets people seriously in trouble. But McIlroy has such great unwinding capability with his upper body that as he unwinds toward impact, his lower body, rather than getting stuck underneath him, begins to rotate so fast. You can see it here. That left knee is gone, and his left arm is above parallel to the ground. Now that wouldn't seem possible with that first drive of the knees. And if you watch his head, how much he's using the ground for leverage here. Just a huge amount of drop, rivaling Tiger, I would say. If you watch Tiger, I'd say we've got like a toss-up here. McIlroy might even win the dropping contest here. Now, much different though when we look at the way the right arm is moving now. It's behind him. Tiger's arm is much more in front of his body. The right arm releasing to the left. Now McIlroy is going to manage to do the same thing because his chest is going to open up like crazy here. Now, if you watch the club exit, you'll see these. Since the camera got a little close to McIlroy, you can't really tell where the club's coming out, but it does look very, very similar. And when we look at the left forearm, McIlroy's got even more of a full roll of the arm, so you'll see that forearm angle right there. Tiger's isn't quite that rolled. So if you tried to put yourself in that arm position, Hogan looked a lot like that. You would find that the only way to do that is to completely unwind your upper body and chest and almost be facing the target as you hit the ball, and definitely as you went through, opening up like crazy. And both of them open up so much in the finish and finish so much that they end up coming out of their side bend a little bit. But another thing to notice here, and this is kind of an angle that I like to draw sometimes just to get people to understand how athletic and difficult these swings are. If you ever tried to put yourself into this amount of bend in the downswing, where they're right around 30 degrees and hitting a shot almost 200 yards, I mean, your nose would be so close to the ground, you'd have to wonder how in the world you're ever going to hit the ball without hitting the ground a foot behind it. So another thing to notice here, and these are just hallmarks of good ball strikers, look how the shaft here stays above the right arm, and I would just call that shaft control. You really don't see the most consistent ball strikers coming in with the shaft underneath the right arm very much. Now, you give McIlroy the driver, and he's going to come in a little bit more into out, and the club might get a little more behind him, but with that release action that he has, he just uses that to hit a high draw and just bomb the crap out of it. Let's take a look at another angle with McIlroy here, and this is, you can really start to see the leg movement here. Here's the resistance. Now he starts to dig into the ground, and he drives down into the ground. Now what I see here is this opening drive, this knee movement here where both knees flex. If you were doing a hula hoop, you would find that you can get your knees to move that way momentarily if you're really going to twist open hard. Look how open his shoulders are when he hits the ball in hips. It's crazy. And just that full range, free release. I mean, talk about flowing free through the ball. Really cool. And here we've got a fixed camera, so you can really see the head movement. Now someday, you know, McIlroy kind of takes a pass on these swing analysis things. You know, every time Tiger hits a bad shot, they blame it on, you know, Sean Foley or Tiger's head dropping. Well, you know, when it comes to dropping heads, look at McIlroy. So I hope that as more people pay attention to what he's up to, that they'll stop talking about head dropping. Or if you're going to talk about it, just tell the truth. It's great. It's what you want to do. It's not what you don't want to do. And then as you watch him hit the ball, look at the head come up, and that's something that Tiger has always done as well. Something that a noted commentator once called popping up. So I guess that's good too. I mean, if both these guys do this stuff, it's good. Watch the footwork. Footwork's awesome. Alright, so anyway, two great players, really cool looking swings. Just thought you might enjoy that.